Hey everybody, welcome to our very first episode of the newly launched Born Podcast, formerly the Central Pennsylvania Shrimp Tank. And here on the podcast, we get to honor those who built something. I'm your host, Nathan Imboden, and on the Born Podcast, we get to champion the message of business ownership and entrepreneurship through interviewing local business owners and entrepreneurs, really understanding and learning how they started, grew, and are running their successful organizations. Really, we get to take a sneak peek underneath the hood to see what it really takes to run a successful business. Now, we want to remind everybody that you can find full replays of our broadcast and our podcast on our website at questmont.com/bornpodcast. Also, be sure to find us on your favorite social media platform, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and wherever you find podcasts. Look for the Born Podcast. Hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all these episodes. And I'm really excited today personally because we get a returning guest, the inaugural. Right. He's coming back for a first episode here, Marc Kurowski, who owns the historic King Mansion here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And Marc, I'm really glad to have you. Welcome back, brother.
Dude, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I feel like a little like between two ferns. I'm a little concerned what's going to happen next, but we're good.
That's hilarious. Well, I'll try not to go too Galifianakis on you here. We'll keep it clean, and I won't make fun of you too much, like you did Steve Carell. Those are hilarious.
Oh, I love the outtakes.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
So, talk a little bit about the King Mansion, what you guys do, and then we'll get into some more details about how this all came about and whatnot. But.
Sure. Yeah. So historic King Mansion is located at 2201 North Front Street, right in the city of Harrisburg. It's right on Riverfront. If you're familiar with the governor's mansion, it's probably about 5 or 6 blocks to the north. We basically meet. I bought the building about 5 years ago now, and really it's evolved into my engineering business is in there, but it's predominantly a wedding and events venue. That's what we do. We've gone all in with that now as a full-time venture, and it's been quite a learning experience, but it's been spectacular. Really enjoying it and getting a lot of great feedback from our guests and our clients.
Awesome. So give maybe a little bit of a backdrop of the maybe makeup of the company. So how many employees do you have for that? Do you sub out a lot of work? Just curiosity what that looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So it's we're basically a collaboration of entities. Okay. So we, as the owners of King Mansion, it's essentially me and two of my office manager, administrative manager from the engineering business. We're it.
Okay.
Awesome. We don't have any full-time employees that are just dedicated to the mansion. Although, shameless plug, we're looking for one.
There you go.
So I'm trying to find someone to help me kind of manage the day-to-day event stuff. But we are partnered then with a number of folks, namely JDK Catering, who is our primary and right now our sole event partner. They handle a lot of the heavy lifting with not just obviously supplying the food. They do the tours. They do our marketing. They do our website. They're a big component. And then we bolt on others as needed for flowers, for balloons, for like typical event type vendors. But really there is technically no full-time employee for 2201 NFS that owns the building.
So, all right, so there's really one exclusive relationship for the most part. JDK is pretty exclusive, but everyone else is just supplemental, whether JDK decides to bring them in or the bridegroom, bridal party, whoever's doing the event decides to bring them in.
Yes. And it depends too. I mean, so, like if folks have a particular culinary need, like we do have like dietary, if there's a different ethnic menu that we want to provide, JDK actually can handle a lot of that, but they will bring folks in. So yeah, we try to adapt to what our folks our guests are looking for, and then we can bring others in as we need them.
Yeah. Cool. So take us back 5 years ago. You said around 5 years ago. You're running an engineering firm. You got engineering in your blood. You're building up a firm there, and I know a little bit about your background, so I know you were running a good practice as it was. And then you decide to tackle this project. So take us through that. Like, how did this all come about? What was the thought process in deciding? Yeah, you know what? Let's do this. It's a good idea.
Really, the kind of driver was. The engineering business, K&W, had been located outside the city in a nice business park, but just a very kind of tired, engineerical looking space. And I wanted us, A, to be in the city, and B, just to have something a little more, just with a little more zip. I didn't want us to look like a traditional engineering firm. So I started looking in town, and I looked at easily probably 15 buildings. And then just happened that my realtor knew the guy that owned King Mansion, wasn't for sale, wasn't listed, but he reached out because he's like, hey, do you know this building? I'm like, I started like, yes, of course. Who doesn't know that building?
Yeah.
we talked to him. He said, you know what, it's time for me to move on. He had owned that building for probably about, I think, 12, 13 years, had a very successful business that he sold. And really, there was not, he only had maybe 10 employees in there when I approached him.
Okay.
I can't say enough. He treated me extremely well. He was looking for somebody that was obviously could manage the financial side of the purchase, but that was going to be a good steward of the property in the building.
Yeah.
I love old buildings. I've lived in Harrisburg for 23 years now. Adaptive reuse of stuff like this really resonates with me. So it was supposed to just be my engineering office with some office tenants, and then started to look at it and say, wait a minute, this has way more potential as an events venue.
Yeah.
That was kind of like, this all started with just, I need office space in the city. That's really what drove it, and it became something quite larger.
That's awesome. I mean, I've had the fortune of being able to be down at the space multiple times, and I mean, when you think about it as an event venue, it's got everything. It's got the riverfront view. If they got a small crowd and you're up on the second story, you could be out on the balcony. Sunsets out there are amazing. You got parking and tons of parking, which is absolutely huge. Yep. And then you just did an incredible job on the actual remodeling and creating so your engineering space is exactly what you said you didn't want to be, right? You were trying to get away from. So that was perfect.
Yep.
But then the touch, the class, the high-end, elegant, but not like over-the-top feel of the event space is second to none. So talk us through that process, though, because that's we just started talking about this a little bit right before here. Our firm moved into this space, and I'm going to guess it was probably maybe 1/10 or maybe 15% of the actual remodeling type work that you had to do, and it was a disaster. I mean,
I'm sure it still felt like
it was horrible,
enormous weight.
So walk us through that, though. How did you manage that well in the midst of also running a business, another business, and what did you find that helped that become successful?
Sure. I mean, again, having great partners and great people around us, right? So one of my clients, who's actually a friend, and we actually trade work with each other, he owns a construction group. So I had reached out to him, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Would you be interested? Because I know his work, and they're top notch at what they do. So brought him in early to start helping us, just peel apart the bones of that building. What are the systems like? What's the roof like? How much are we really getting into here? And then also knew that, I'm an engineer, and I can generally go, when somebody says, hey, do you like this or this? I can pick one, but I'm not going to be the one that says, hey, here's the ideas, right? Yeah. So we engaged with a actually another client of ours, their interior design department, and she was phenomenal with a very little amount of information other than, hey, we're trying to be wedding and events. Hey, we want to be contemporary, but still respect the history of the building in some level with some balance. And you're so spot on with that. And by the way, I'm going to have you play this tape back so I can use that as a testimonial, because it's exactly what we went for. And it makes me feel so good to hear folks say that after they've been in the space. Is we really wanted to be. We're not here to overshadow the event. That's not us. We're not here to be like, hey, look at how big and flashy we are. That's not us. We want to set a nice palette, a nice background that's has a nice feel, has a nice look. But you create your event, in kind of whatever ways you want to, based on that platform. So again, those were probably two of my biggest partners. Was the construction firm, who's just done an amazing job and has done multiple projects for us, and our interiors team and architectural team. They were top notch. They took what little bit of kind of pieces of information I threw at them, and I had high expectations, and they collectively exceeded them across the board. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, you get. My wife and I have more of a contemporary, clean, kind of modern, modern style, what we like. But there's always something about going into those older historic buildings that have all the charm. And our producer, Joy, lives downtown as well, and has been doing some work on her house. And all of the, keeping the... It's not culture, but the history, you don't see that kind of stuff anymore. The crown molding, molding over the ceiling fans or the lights, or all that kind of stuff that the detail that you don't get anymore.
That craftsmanship is hard to find, and tough to replicate.
Yeah.
Agree. I mean, and again, we actually, that's fairly consistent feedback we get from folks is they do like, from the outside, it has that classic historic 1920s Gatsby area kind of feel. And you get in, you're like, oh, this is a little more contemporary. It does seem to be a pretty nice kind of intentional juxtaposition, but it has a nice, it's not so far afield that you're like, oh my God, I just stepped into a different, it has a nice balance.
Yeah. So, if we dig in maybe a little bit to the actual kind of purchase, acquisition, remodeling stuff, that's a pretty big undertaking, pretty big financial undertaking, I would assume.
Yeah.
So, what did that process look like in relation to, like, how'd you get financing? Did you have to fight hard for it? How'd you value or evaluate whether or not it made sense and metrics around that? What would that look like?
I'm going to say some things that you as a financial advisor are going to go, I cannot believe you just said that's how you approach this. So look, once I knew after I was in that building and I had a sense of, hey, wants to be a wedding and events venue, which kind of came actually from a comment from the guy I was buying from. I knew I was buying it. Yeah. And then it kind of became all right, how do I make it fit? And, ran the pro formas. Like, even at that early stage, I'm like, there was actually a tenant on the first floor. So I had at least some cushion that I had a lease in place. I had some time to kind of get my legs under me there. And then with just adding my engineering business, I knew that I could carry for a while. The big jump, to be honest, was when we worked with our first floor tenant and said, hey, we'd love to find another spot for you somewhere else in town because we want to take the first floor space over. Yeah. That was the jump, because now you walk away from guaranteed rent that was a multiple year lease to this speculative, okay, I sure hope people are going to come here, which also happened to be in early 2020. Yeah. So like the timing in some ways was great, in some was bad. Like all of a sudden nobody's doing anything, right? Because it was beginning pandemic, but it also left us go, well, we can go do work in here because nobody's coming. Yeah. So it gave us the the time to just, all right, go in, tear this thing apart, get it the way we want it, and then we were ready to go. Like spring of 21 is really when we were available. Yeah. Okay. I used to joke with my banker, who is still, she's been with me at different banks. I've followed her since I started my K&W business 17 years ago. She's amazing. How much debt can I take? Like, what can I do here? Yeah. No help. Quite honestly, we didn't pursue any grant funding or anything at that point. We did get like a little, Creedic did help us out with some low interest loan on some of the fit out work. That was really it. Kind of like leveraged my business, leveraged myself, my personal assets to go, I'm in on this thing, so let's go. That's how it started. Yeah. Moving forward from then, we've actually just a couple of months ago learned that we were successful on two pretty big, different. One was a state program, one's a federal program. That has given us some basically grant money. Oh, sweet. We had a significant match, but we could do it based on the land value and the building to do a ton of improvements. So that is helping me kind of move forward, because while those old buildings, which have so much character, are awesome, the character means pipes don't work, windows don't close, I had to put in a sprinkler system. So that's really, that kind of help has been huge in taking it to the next level. Yeah.
Well, that's why those programs exist, to help get buildings that have longevity in them still, up to a place where they can continue to do that by getting things either up to code or just even to a safer place. That's great. Yep. So you said at the very beginning about the ironic part about being in my field, but also working with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, is conventional thinking isn't the same. And we get that from our business too. Okay. We have decisions that we have to make from time to time where you have to put on the owner hat and put off the everyday thinking hat, and but it's all about taking at least some sort of reasonable, calculated risk around, is there potential? And honestly, sometimes the best way to, and you see this, the best way to actually win is to just go at it, just go for it. We hear countless stories of people that just threw caution to the wind, and they have an idea, they have a general sense of, I think this is going to work. Yep. You don't know until you do it. Yeah. And if you don't try it, and that's what this is all about, right? If you don't try it, you're never going to.
Absolutely. Yeah. No risk, no reward. Yeah. Right on.
Awesome. All right. So you've mentioned your team a bit, and how you have a great team around you. You mentioned some of the outside team, but also spent a lot of time talking about your internal team. Yep. And how great they are, how they helped really get this process through. Yep. It takes a lot to have a team be at a point where they're willing to endure that kind of stuff. So how did you do that? I mean, that's all I'd say that is culture and respect as a leader and whatnot. So how'd you build that?
Whew, that is a good, deep question. I mean, look, so the closest team to me are again, my administrative folks and office manager who have been with me at K&W for some time. So that culture really does kind of bleed into what we do with King Mansion.
Yep.
And it's a very, it's a culture of respect. It's a culture of like, we're fun, everybody can say that, but like we really engage with like our that talk about the engineering business and then how it morphs into it is, we give people like, hey, look, you're a professional. We're all adults. I'm not going to micromanage you as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do and you're getting your stuff done. Awesome. I'm going to give you the opportunities to do more. But there's a lot of mutual respect. There's a lot of transparency. That's like, hey, if you have a question about our finances, you ask me, I'll tell you. So kind of carry that forward. And those two, and it's Cheryl and Caitlin. They're my absolute rock stars. I think they got to a level of, okay, we don't know what we're doing either, but we like how you've supported us before, and we're willing to like jump out here and try it.
Yeah.
Cheryl especially, I mean, she has helped manage like the contractors, and we've all just kind of been muddling through. Hey, none of us have ever run a wedding venue or have run through construction projects of that size. So I guess it's really, I guess I keep coming around to respect and like just this shared idea of, hey, no questions dumb, like we're all in this. I'm going to say some dumb things because I don't know what I'm doing either. And it's just a very genuine kind of authentic, we're going to fail. Let's figure out how to go from that and make it right the next time. I didn't articulate that really well, and maybe Cheryl and Caitlin would have a different perspective, but they certainly did. They were willing to take the jump with me.
Yeah. I think you articulated it well. I think it ultimately boils down to a couple things. One, you as the leader, casting a vision that you can get your team excited about because they are a part of it. They are able to come alongside of it, and then they can take ownership in it. Yes. But then the second thing I think you said was really creating culture that allows for flexibility, vulnerability, authenticity, and I think most important, the opportunity to make mistakes, because we're all going to make mistakes without, there are some mistakes that are probably, they'll have to have a separate discussion, but genuine mistakes that are okay.
Yes.
And we'll figure it out. We come together as a team.
Yes.
And I mean, candidly, that starts with you. You're the one responsible for that as the leader. And I think that speaks a lot to what you've done with the organization and what we continue to do with both. So
I'm hopeful. Staff seems to feel that way. Everybody seems to be rowing in the same direction, so that's good.
Perfect. All right, so talk a little bit about the, in general, you got some growth goals, I would assume, since you're really 2 years into, if that, not quite 2 full years into using the space as an event venue. So talk about what your goals are for growth, how you plan to get there a little bit.
Sure. So, yeah, right. I mean, it's funny. In some ways, it seems like it's been so much longer, but really, we've only been full-time weddings for about 1.5 years. Okay. We are a little shy on our goals this year, which I wouldn't say we're ambitious. They were reasonable, but I'm comfortable. We're on the right trajectory. If I'm in terms of numbers, I would love to be doing 50 weddings a year. Yeah. I don't think that's a stretch, whether that is back-to-backs on the weekend. We've had plenty of weeknight weddings where folks that just want like a small 25-person ceremony. Yep. So a target for me, like within 3 years, I think we should be doing 50 weddings a year. When JDK watches this, they're going to go, hey, thanks for telling us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's actually probably a good segue to, like, we've had a lot of conversation. They've been an amazing partner with us, but we both kind of realized, like, hey, there's some room maybe to bring in some other folks. Not to take any work away from what we're already doing, but there's a lot of room to supplement. Yep. So is there another option? We're never going to be like hey, there's the high price, the low price, or middle price, low price option. We're always going to stay probably in a bit of a more higher end product. Yep. But there's more available out there. Yeah. So that was, I mentioned before, I'm looking to bring on a full-time staffer to really run, give more tours, weddings, but private events. We actually have had more of those than I expected this year. Once COVID kind of settled down enough that folks were comfortable, that has blown up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything, like bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, birthday parties. I mean, we've had like bounce houses in the front yard. We don't do a lot of that, but like there have been birthday parties. So there's a bringing on a staffer. There is targeting the 50 weddings and way more private events. But, one of the cool things I'm super excited about now, it's kind of like the next shiny thing for me is, adding guest rooms.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a very logical component for us. A lot of folks around here that do what we do offer that. So for us to be competitive kind of across the board, we needed that.
Yeah.
We've developed a partnership with actually a good friend of mine who happens to be my neighbor. His home is just perfectly teed up to be that type of a use. We have an arrangement. He doesn't live in the house anymore, but still owns it. So we're opening that up. That's actually available this fall.
Sweet.
And then we're going to finish up some rooms on our third floor. I have a feeling that just being able to pitch that entire package is going to make a big difference and just drive, again, more traffic to our growth.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's in front of us right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thought.
Awesome. All right. So you've mentioned other venues in the area, and there's
Yes.
no shortage of them.
Yep.
And I would assume that more often than not, you're getting into situations where, yes, particularly let's take a call for weddings where a bride and a groom are coming, and you're one of 2, 3, 4 different venues you're looking at.
Sure.
In a competitive situation like that, what's your pitch? How do you go about it to win the business, to differentiate yourself, and push it over the line? Because you may end up being, like you said, you're going to price up here, which is maybe going to be above everybody else.
Yes.
So what do you do? What do you say, and how do you get those brides and grooms on the other side?
So, be full disclosure, I'm generally not the guy having that discussion.
Right.
Now, I will say that, so that's JDK right now, but we talk a lot about that to say, hey, how are we going to handle this?
Yeah.
What we know our differentiators are, to me, like probably the biggest, clearest one is there are plenty of options for a barn wedding, right? There are plenty of, the Hilton has a lovely venue for the, that type of like a big, just a ball, like not just, but a ballroom wedding.
Yep.
We are not those things. We are like this, this historic setting or historic facility in an urban setting that's not quite urban. It's urban enough to get you close to stuff that you want, and it's easily accessible, but it's not downtown. Parking is easy and readily available, and the views go such a long way to selling the property, right? So we know that we are not for everybody, and we're totally okay with that. But I think that, the idea that we're this kind of, I don't even know who I would compare us to. There's, Lancaster has maybe has one, I think, that's pretty similar in being an urban setting. Yeah. You're kind of at smaller, but beyond that, you're going to Philly or you're going to DC.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the biggest differentiator. Yep. That's where I lean the hardest. The building sells itself in a lot of ways, but that to me is probably, we're a different product for this area, for quite a broad, if you put a pin in us and put a circle, we don't really intersect until we get to Philadelphia. Is our perspective. Yeah.
That's a good way to say it. I mean, there's nothing I'm thinking about, we're members at a club down in Harrisburg at the Hilton, and they have a great facility.
Sure.
The main reason I'm a member of the club is so I don't have to park in that stupid parking garage, and I can valet when I go down there. Because it is that alone is an inconvenience.
Yes.
Well, when you talk about matching the urban, not urban, but you can kind of get that, and you don't have to be inconvenienced parking wise. I mean, that's a huge hurdle that gets people over that. So that's cool. All right. So quick on maybe on a sales and marketing side.
Yep.
What have you found that works well? And I know JDK is, I think, doing a lot of that for you.
Right.
But just curious, what have they found that's maybe worked really well, and what has failed?
Good questions. So, I mean, JDK lead, but as a team, I think we've been pretty well on the mark with, they sold me on the idea of, much more targeted, our social media presence is significant. Yeah. And that is something that we've committed and invested into. That has shown very tangible results, not just in, we got followers, we've got people watching our reels or whatever. Right. It's generating leads. Yeah. So, I mean, that our target demographic is typically going to probably be early 20s to early 30s. Yeah. I mean, it's social media. That's where you're going, right? Yeah. So very much a straight up that's probably, one of the more successful ways that we actually market and bring folks in. In terms of kind of fail, I mean, initially I was like, I just want people in the building. I don't even really, not that I don't care, but we took on a lot of events.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of them were just like nonprofits,
Sure.
didn't charge anybody. We just
Yep.
wanted folks to come in and experience the space.
Yep.
That was good for the period that we just, like, it was just trying to generate awareness.
Yeah, yeah.
We are probably we will still, I mean, we have a community mission that we are passionate about doing that with nonprofits, but we're probably going to be more about, okay, we do have a product here that has value. So like we're starting to move into, all right, now it's maybe less of the kind of freebie idea, I guess.
Yeah.
We've established enough of a footprint.
Yeah, yeah. You do that to get awareness out there.
Yes.
To maybe get a little branding done.
Yes.
And you shift then away from that. I remember in college there was a restaurant not far from where it was a pub basically that did, it was like 3 nights a week they did free wings if you sat at the bar.
Okay.
And you just had to order a drink while you're there. Now,
Okay.
I went to Messiah College. I signed the covenant. I did not drink beer. I got a soda. Scout's
Good
honor.
man.
But
Good man.
we went there like 2 nights a week
Yeah.
because it was free wings. And then they did it, what did chicken wings in bulk cost? Next to nothing. They threw them in this big pot. And then, we go home and our stomachs hurt later because we ate too many.
Yeah.
But it got us there.
Yes.
And then we kept going back afterwards. They
Yep.
did that maybe 6 months. And then, they realized, okay, it served its purpose.
Yes.
Got some visibility out. Now a lot of people know about us. Now we don't have to anymore. So that
Brilliant.
makes a lot of sense. All right. So I like to kind of wrap these with one general question.
Okay.
And I guess it's more of a specific question. And that is, as you look ahead, when you think about you and the mansion, what would you say would need to happen for you to say that was successful?
Ooh. Probably 2 or 3 kind of prongs to that answer for me. One is, it is very important to me to have folks from our community, from all walks of our community, in the building just to experience it,
Yeah.
right? Whether that is a nonprofit event, it is a chamber event, it is a, just come in here and experience and see what this is all about. People drive by and they'll say it. They'll drive by and say, I always wanted to go in this building.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do that. Let's get people in and experience it. And then maybe they're inspired to do a thing or feel a certain kind of way about having had that experience. I'm not going to give like a financial metric. Like to me, of course, this is a for-profit venture, right? And I mean, I'm hoping it's successful that way, and I'm sure it will be. But it's more of a, I will feel like the feedback that we get from our guests is always hey, we really enjoyed it. Hey, it was like your comments about when people when I go, this is what I want it to be, and the feedback I get without having asked is that's what it is.
Yeah.
Cool, we hit the mark.
Yeah.
It's a lot. There's a third prong, and I forgot what it was. But like, it is definitely the financial piece, of course, is in there. But it's just as much to me about the feel, the experience, people enjoying it, actually getting in there and saying, "Hey, I had such an awesome time at King Mansion for my fill in the blank event."
Yeah.
Really just the experience, I guess, and kind of an experiential, like that whole thing. I didn't expect it. I never knew what it was going to be like, and they came away feeling like so much, not better, but they felt like, yeah, wow, that is not at all what I expected.
Yeah.
Positively.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I can tell you lit up after I said what I said.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to really where your mind and heart is with this. Of course, we're business people.
Sure.
We don't want to lose money. We want
Sure.
to make money. But it's safe to say profit isn't mission number one.
Absolutely.
Mission number one is experience. It's allowing people to go through something in a way that they maybe didn't think they would have
Yes.
before. And you do that, the money will come.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you provide a good experience and the money will come.
Truth.
So, awesome. All right, so everybody that's tuning in here that's going to see this now, even though we're going to have tags, we're going to have all that fun stuff, but they're going to want to know, all right, well, how do I learn about this place?
Yeah.
How do I see it? Do you have a website? So what's the best way for people to discover more if they're interested in checking the mansion out?
Sure. So I mean, like, it's going to sound crazy. Like, Google Historic King Mansion straight up, because that will take you to all the different outlets that we have. Our website is kingmansionpa.com. That's got tons of information that will get you connected to folks who can get you more. Certainly on the socials, and I am so embarrassed, and JDK will like holler at me afterwards, like, search Historic King Mansion. I can't tell you exactly what our tags are for each of, but we're definitely on all the social media platforms. I'd start with the website, but socials are going to be the best place to see. We probably post every 2 or 3 days with pictures, reels, stuff that we've been doing. Even like, hey, we're getting to the end of the year. We're looking to reduce our fee by $1,000 because we're just trying to fill some spots.
Sure. Yeah.
So start with the socials. Go to the website. Come visit us.
Yeah.
2201 North Front Street. Just knock on the door. We have literature there. And also, if we're around, I'll stop what I'm doing and give you a tour.
Yeah.
Because I just love getting people in there.
Yeah. Well, if you get down there and you get to take a tour, there is so much outside of the venue itself and all the work that you guys put in. There's so much history around what's there, what used to be there, the basement, all the, what that was used for. I mean, we didn't even get into that, which is a good teaser for if you want to learn that and you're serious about, Mark can't go around giving tours all day, but there's some really, really cool stories about that. So awesome. Well, everyone at home, I hope this was an enjoyable time to get to learn a little bit more about a true gem. Hopefully it's not hidden anymore here in our backyard right in Harrisburg. And check out the web. I have show notes and links for you down below wherever we've got this pushed out. As I said, have had the privilege of being able to be at your facility multiple times for small events, for big events. We were able to host a couple there, and there is nothing like it in our area. So if you're looking for that unique experience, you got to check them out. So awesome. Hey, thanks for coming on again, Mark.
Dude, thank you.
Loved having you.
Always enjoy it.
Everyone at home, thanks for jumping back on again. Formerly the Central PA Shrimp Tank. So if you had been subscribing to those podcasts before, if you're on that social platform, some of that's going to flip over pretty much automatically. But search for us, the Born Podcast. Keep up to date on all those episodes. We're glad to be back. Love to bring more episodes to you here in the near future. Thanks, everyone.
There you go.